Okay, we are live with Natasha. So I'm going to share my screen with you. Yes, can you see my screen already?
Yes, I can.
All right. So, Natasha, when is your birthday?
It's 14th of June, 1972
Time?
at 11, is it 52 p.m.
Oh,
So
wait.
20,
Right.
23:50.
Great.
Yeah.
And where?
Yeah. And that is in Rolla, Rolla, Missouri.
Uh-huh. 20 degrees Aquarius rising? Is that what you're familiar with?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Funny enough, when I was younger, when we just had to use like the charts, the old school charts, they almost always put me as a Pisces rising. So I don't know if it's just like it was like super close, but it constantly came up when I was younger as a Pisces rising. And then as soon as it became all electronic, for some reason it like inched over to Aquarius rising, which I think is very fascinating. But that's what,
Interesting.
yeah.
Okay, maybe that's going to be relevant today.
Okay.
But you've known yourself to be for some time now. You're an Aquarius rising.
Yeah, but it's funny. I've always just thought I always just think I don't think of myself as a double air sign. Like just
Okay.
yeah, so
Huh.
it's always been like something that feels like a little bit disjointed. I'm always like I was like maybe like I was like I do know I was born right before midnight and I'm like does I was like maybe I'm off by 5 minutes and that's like I almost need to go back, but I don't have like access to my birth certificate. So I'm like, I was like, am I off by just like 5 minutes? And has that made the difference or something like that? But I don't think of myself as a double air sign. And often I feel like I have some Piscean traits. So it's just a very funny little question I have. Yeah.
Okay, maybe we'll get some clarity on that already today, because inevitably when you talk about money or whatever we talk about, the whole chart is relevant, right? Because whatever you're going to explain. Okay, well, you'll see. So
Okay.
maybe we'll get some information about that. So let's just start with yeah, very basic question. So where do you get income at the moment?
So I get income from two sources. One is like my main job is as a facilitator, coach, and mentor. I work with the practice of authentic relating. So I lead workshops, I do one-on-one guidance. That is like my main job. And then I also get basically a passive income from investments as well.
Hmm.
And then also like renting out the apartment on Airbnb and things of that nature.
Because you have an extra room that you host people?
We have both this apartment here in town, and then we have I have a summer cottage out in the countryside, so we can easily leave here when this place is booked.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
And who is we?
that's very common in Denmark is to have a summer house or country place, to like get out of the city. Yeah.
Okay. Which neighborhood do you live in Copenhagen?
I live in Sulhavn, so in the South Harbor part of the city.
Ah, that's where I lived.
Oh, funny.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, So you're actually in a pretty good area in the city as well.
Yes.
Okay. And you have the summer cottage. So how often would you say you're moving in between?
I spend at least I often spend half of my week out there. So I often even just like go out there by myself even when my partner is here. So I like to be out in the countryside and it's very grounding and often I almost because my partner and I both work from home, it often I just gather like my clients and stuff around a few days and then I go out there. So it's easier for me to work by myself.
Hmm.
I can work outside in my garden and like, yeah, so. I can take calls outside and like, yeah, it just feels really cozy for me to be out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with the first job. And then we're going to get into expenditures a bit later. So you work primarily as a facilitator, a coach, a mentor in authentic relating. Did I understand correctly?
Yes.
Okay. And authentic, can you just give maybe a example of what that might look like, what you might talk about with someone?
Yeah, so basically they're healthy communication practices. I'm teaching people how to communicate from a healthier, more embodied and authentic place. So I'm giving people lots of tools. And I also come like, I've studied a lot of different modalities. So I've also in my own practice that I do one-on-one, I can bring in anything from, radical honesty and tantra and embodiment and nervous system regulation. So I'm often just like the the way I put it is like I'm often just really keeping someone companionship on their journey into self-realization, I think is like a way to put it. So I'm often just doing like I'm not a therapist, but I do it seems that what I do has a lot of therapeutic um results in terms of like I am fully listening to people as they're talking, like I have people feel fully seen and yeah, so I mentor people into self-realization, I think is the easiest way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I teach people about boundaries and consent and, even going into self-empowerment, sometimes even into sexuality and intimacy. So it's really like figuring out where someone really needs guidance, support, and just companionship uh, along the way.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So it's pretty simple in my opinion, in your chart. Well, okay, of course it's in many places. We're just starting little by little, but I'm going to show you what I noticed so far.
Yeah.
And I just, I remove the planets very often to simplify the chart quite a bit so that we can talk about one thing at a time, right? Because otherwise there's
Yeah.
too many things going on.
Yeah.
And the first thing for me is your stellium in Gemini. Like I would point out in the first place that you have the Sun conjunct Venus in Gemini, right? So any planets that are conjunct the Sun end up becoming a big part of your identity, a big part of your work, and a big part of your life. And in this case, it's Venus, right? So Venus is relating
Yeah.
well, getting along with people, cooperating, being there for them, companionship, relationship, right? And in your case, it's in Gemini, and Gemini is about talking, right? Listening to someone very deeply and reflecting back to them whatever they've told you, right? So that constant exchange. So there's like your work in groups and also one-on-one, like talking with people. But the Saturn part then comes in, right? So the Saturn part is that you teach people how to set boundaries, how to do good communication with each other, right? You're a mentor, you're a coach. So basically you help people improve their communication and their relationships, right? Did I understand correctly?
Perfectly.
Okay, all right. So there I see these three, right? So I see this is how you're getting your money, actually. It's from this, essentially. Does that make sense so far?
Yes.
Okay. Um, yeah, the other thing that it's in the fourth house, right? Because the fourth house is very personal, very intimate, very deep. Like at that point, you're talking with other people about things that are yeah, just touch them quite deeply. It's not like surface level. It's not like you're telling them how to get help from the government or whatever, right? You're directly interacting with them at that level. So that's the fourth house from you. Does that make sense so far?
Perfectly.
Okay, good. Now, you said that you also have investments. So
Yes.
what kind of investments have you made?
Yeah, so this is where we'll definitely start to get into some gray territory, which is like, I don't know. So my 6 years ago, my beloved bonus father passed and left me an inheritance. And my the rest of my family had already been investing with a friend of the family, and I did not know quite what to do with that level of money. So it was just like, and also, as I live in the EU, even though I'm technically an American citizen, uh, it became very difficult to take any of my money out of the US, which is where my bonus father was and where the money was, and it was all in a trust. So my money is basically tied up in a trust still with my mother, and most of that is put into investments. So I basically take like a chunk of, like, I take like a interest, right? I think that's what it's called. The interest basically comes into my account every month, so that also bulks up my stipend. So I don't have to. It really alleviates a lot of pressure in terms of I don't need to do the work that I do for money.
Mm-hmm.
I get to do it from my pure love, really, of the practice. And there is some shadow around that in terms of like that I don't overly market myself. I don't, I probably under market myself. I'm not as maybe, as aggressive in like marketing myself and getting new clients. I'm very passive in that. I'm just like, I believe that like whoever is meant to work with me, we find each other and like whatever. I'm very gentle about it. And some people around me sometimes get a bit frustrated that I'm not a little bit more active in like and pursuant and marketing myself to getting out there. We can have another question about that. But and one of the reasons like that allow me to kind of like exist in that space is the fact that like I have my basic needs taken care of, and I don't feel like that I live much. I don't I don't perceive that I live super extravagantly. So that just causes me to just be very comfortable in that dynamic, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And around how much do you get monthly from the interest?
In US, it's I think 5,500 a month.
Oh, perfect. How nice. Okay. And so how long is that for the rest of your life that that's
I mean,
coming?
that's for up to me to decide. Like I can just like for the first years, I only pulled a 5,000 because that is what my money manager said that I could take off the top without like kind of affecting the bulk of it. Like so
Hmm.
I could I, I could live like if I just lived off of that budget, I could keep that nest egg without doing much to it. But I am soon going to be making some big that'll probably go down a little bit soon because I want to invest in the house that I have in the countryside. It needs a new roof. It needs, it's a very old farmhouse, so it needs kind of some redevelopment. And I also think that I've been nervous a little bit. Like I did not grow up with much money, so there is we'll go into more about my long-term relationship with money, but now I notice a little bit, especially with the world, like I get a little bit nervous about taking away any of it. Like I'm like sometimes like I have a little bit of this slight chaotic thing where I'm just like, oh, okay, like let me make a big investment here and let me like buy a nice trip or something like that. But then there's also part of me that wants to hoard and like hold on to it because it does give me this, it has taken away a lot of anxiety about the day to day and the month to month that I've had for a lot of my life. Um yeah. I'm a very
Very,
old, I'm a very old trust funder. Like, I knew people growing up who were trust funders, right? And like the way they look. And I first came into that in my late 40s, like, so it's like already everything was set. So it's very difficult for me to suddenly like let go, like to have that dynamic change has been
Uh-huh.
interesting. Yeah,
Okay, I want to point out quite a few things now. Are you ready?
please. I'm ready.
Okay. First of all, it's the same. We're going to be talking about Sun, Venus, Saturn.
Okay.
And what I want to point out to you is that the three of them are living in your fourth house. And the fourth house, of course, is your bonus father, your late bonus father. Okay, so anyone that's in your family, anything that comes from your family is going to be in the fourth house.
Okay.
And in your situation, it's again the Sun-Venus conjunction because your father left you a lot of money. That's the money you live on. That's the valuables where you get them from. It's from your late father that had passed, right? So there's Venus in the fourth, right? Because where do things come from for you? From him, at least now, right? In this part of your life. So we're just talking about this part of your life, and I'll show you also, the transits, because that's going to make even more sense to you why it's happening now. Okay, the other part of it is the Saturn. All right. For multiple reasons. First, you said that it was hard to pull that money from the bank account in the United States because that's where you're from, right? And so where you're from is also the fourth house. So that the money is parked in the US and not in Europe. So it's a little harder to access. Sun, Venus, Saturn in the fourth. Okay. The other part of it, that you get this stipend, right? I would say that's Sun, Venus, because it supports your everyday life. You do what you need to. It's like this great boon. But then there's the Saturn. And the Saturn is that complicated relationship that comes from the money, right? That it prevents you, from example, from actually marketing yourself more aggressively. Or that other people feel like, yeah, you're not really reaching your full potential with what you can do because you have this money. Or that you want to sometimes hoard it and hold on to it, right? Because it's so comfortable and so lovely. So there's the Saturn part of it, that you get that money, but there's kind of the shadow side, as you said. Does that all make sense so
Yep.
far?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another part of it that this is like, Saturn for me also makes me think about this. This comes from like the generations past. And by the way, you didn't get that big money until just now. Right? So most of your life you didn't have that. Is just now so there's the Saturn for me as well. That money from your late father came like later in life. Does that all make sense so far?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, if I put up the transits, and what I want to show you is, so when did he pass?
Let's see, that was in December of 2018. So then I first found out kind of like I had the money at the very beginning of 2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oops. Okay, so actually you've known about that since quite a while already.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay. I thought it was very recent, but it doesn't matter. What I really want to point out to you is that at that time, which is like early 2019, Jupiter is opposing your fourth house stellium. And just to understand that a bit more, can you briefly share with us when you found out that you have all that money in 2019, what happened? What was the immediate result in those months?
I mean the first impact was, so I was first 15 when he married my mother. So I was not really raised with him, and he and I also in those early years had a lot of contention. We just like, yeah, we both wanted the full love of my mother at the time. And he had 4 adult children of his own. So he wasn't really like my my father, but later on we became closer and closer and closer. I'm just giving this as context because um, by the time he died, I actually felt even closer to him than to my bio dad, who strangely enough died 4 weeks after my bonus father died. So I lost them both within a month of each other. So I lost my bonus father in the beginning of 2019. I mean, my birth father in the beginning of 2019.
Hmm.
And that's a little bit of context just to say that I didn't really have, even though I was like, I became a lot closer to my bonus father, I did not have any expectations of like what he would leave me. I knew he was a wealthy man, but I wasn't raised with any of his wealth, you know, like he occasionally imparted cash gifts and stuff like that, but it wasn't like I wasn't ever really dependent on him, and I wasn't raised in his kind of mindset or in his culture. We didn't have that in my own family. My father was terrible with money, like terrible. I can't even begin. Again, we could go into that. But when my bonus father provided for my sister equally to his own children, that left a huge impact on me, because like he didn't have to do that and there was no expectation. So there was something like, I just wanted to say the emotional impact that he did of that meant more to me than the actual money.
Hmm.
Yeah. So that was the immediate emotional impact. What was really beautiful, and this is already like giving me a little bit of chills of what you've said thus far, is when he died, I looked at my life and I said, okay, what does this money make possible? For example, asking myself the question, since money isn't an, you know, like, what is it that I want to do that maybe I haven't done because I have had been financially limited? And I was like, what do I love? And I do love healthy communication. I just started doing authentic relating, and I was like, I'm just going to go into getting trainings, you know, and like really, you know, educating myself and doing the things that I really find are real yeses for me. And just like, even just like, I think a week or two after some of the money came in, I was on this course called Authentic Relating. And within 2 hours of it, like basically the leader was like, I want you to be part of like our training team. And that's what I've now done since then. So it went that quickly. Once the money kind of came through, I didn't perceive any barriers to me exploring something that I felt a real yes for. And then, you know, it's kind of like that's become like the most aligned thing that I've ever done in my life is finding this alignment with this work.
Hmm.
Does that answer your question, like that you
Well,
have?
that was in 2019 actually that that
Yeah,
journey began. Is that right?
yeah, correct.
Okay. Well, because you can see Jupiter is moving through your 10th house at the time and opposing your fourth house planets, right? So the way you can make that connection is your father's pass, both of them. You get that money. And now, 10th house, right? Jupiter, you feel so open to exploring all the things. And you go very deep into authentic relating, and straight away you're invited to become part of the training team. Right? So the two are, do you see how they're related, how they're working together?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, good. Now, you said that your father was bad with money. What was that about?
So my father's from Guatemala. He was one of 9 children, you know, growing up in the late 30s, early 40s in Guatemala. My his father, uh, who also turns out was not good with money. He died when my father was quite young, and the entire family plummeted into severe poverty. Um, they had some pretty hard times, and I know that that probably had some effect on my father. So later on, also, you know, there's talking about moving from one culture to the other. He then moved to the United States, and he worked hard to take care. He was the oldest son, even though he was like number 4 in the lineup, but he was, and of course in Latino culture, like still him being the the eldest male felt like he had to provide. So he ended up really just like any money that he had, he kind of just like let go and put into the rest of his family. So in one thing, I don't know if it was so much a generosity as it was so much of like a role that he felt he had to play. So he just like money would just always just like pass directly through his hands. Like if my father only had $100, he would give that to me, to feel like he was being a good father. Like he struggled with other parts of being a good father, but like he had this programming of what he thought that was, but he also didn't have any. He was, I think, only 11 when his dad died, and his dad was always working, and there was, like I said, there was 8 other kids.
Hmm.
He didn't have any modeling, for it. So like I've forgiven my father for his lackings. But I think there was a part of that, like he, you know, my mom basically like ran the household because she saw how bad he was with money. But after they divorced, that wasn't put into check at all. And after I became an adult, my father basically left his jobs and started trying to create all of these like little companies. And all of them failed. He was terrible at all of them. And just, yeah, his later years, he was really kind of struggling financially. He had, when he died, and he had moved into a home, we found out that he would have only had enough money to have made like one more month of like living expenses. He had just nothing. Yeah.
For me, that juxtaposition between your two fathers is very interesting.
Yeah.
The one who's really well, that makes me think about the Gemini, right? You're living two lives.
Yeah.
One father who's like this, the other one who's like that. Makes me think about Saturn and the Sun both being in the fourth house with Venus, right? Because in your story, the situation with these two fathers in one way is about their different capacity to manage money.
Yeah.
And also that your father just struggled financially all the time, as long as you've known him. There's Saturn with the Sun and Venus, right? Because that's something that's chronic. It's
Yeah.
not just every once in a while. Like, that is how you know him. That is his story. That is what continues to happen for him. And so also that he started many businesses and they all failed. Like, that's Gemini, right? Because Gemini is mutable. So trying something different, having many things, juggling.
I've also myself, I don't say I have a lot of like failures because I think I was like much more risk averse. So even though like I started some businesses and they didn't, survive, like I didn't have the same like huge chaotic things that he did because I was like, okay, there's a potential. Like I saw what my father was going through and juxtapose that with my bonus father, who also had lots of businesses and some of them failed and some of them did it. But he just gradually built an empire. Like literally, he literally built an empire, big like real estate, like, conglomerate, whatever. And like I said, he also had mixed things, but he was deeply conservative with his money and yeah, was like very, very financially astute.
Okay. Do you see the two stories of Sun, Venus, Saturn?
How do you mean?
Um, there's one story of the person who's very conservative, very smart, very intelligent, very constructive with their money. Right?
Mhm.
So that's one level of Saturn with
Yeah.
Venus. And then there's the other one, the person who could never figure it out. Money kept leaving their hands and they could never build something. So their financials were always limited to the last day.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's the two kind of
Mhm.
versions of Saturn. And there's the Gemini in your fourth house, right? Because you
Yeah.
experience two realities in your own family.
Yeah, and I would say that that also feels like my experience where I'm, sometimes really like, if I go, and I know it sounds like we're going to go into that later, but there's some areas of my life in which like money's no object, like food, for example. Like when I go to the grocery store, I want to only buy the best organic, something like I'm not like looking at the prices of that. I'm like, oh, I'm going to buy the organic thing. I don't like, I'm like, oh, the areas of my life that I think are important, but I'm not going to blow like money on like a designer purse. Like it means nothing that there's like a name on something. I'm like, oh no, I'm only going to buy things of good quality. That seems like a waste. I'll be very funny with other things. And I also go through this like, oh, there's areas where I don't think anything about just like spending money. And then there's other areas that I feel really kind of like contracted and conservative on.
Tell me
So
about that.
yeah,
Yeah.
what can I tell you? Let's see.
Well, where do you feel contractive and conservative?
Well, okay, let me give you an example. This apartment. So I basically my partner, we were finally going to move in together after some years, and I wanted to buy an apartment that was a lot cheaper than this one, like
Hmm.
a lot cheaper. But he was getting ready to leave a big job soon, and he knew that like even though he's starting a new business, which for me seems like the time to also be much more conservative, much more, but he's kind of a guy who's like, no, you got to like take big risks and you not got to gamble and stuff like that. Like the market's about to jump off. Like, let's buy, kind of this for me, very like an apartment that was so much more expensive than I could imagine. But he was like, this is a solid investment. And I'm not kind of an investment minded person. I never had that growing up. I never had the idea to invest in something, my previous apartment was very, very inexpensive. And like, I don't like to take big risks and in with money. Um, and I was kind of in a place which I recognize now where that wasn't really a fuck yes for me to go into this apartment, but like
Mm.
some of my own wounding around like wanting him to be happy and me saying like, well, I don't really know this much about investments. I don't understand this. I guess that makes sense. Like he sometimes intellectualizes things and I don't feel very strong intellectually. So I can let myself get swayed sometimes, especially if I love somebody and I want them to love me. Like I definitely have some, people please
Uh-huh.
that I've done a lot of work on, but still in my core relationships, still pop up in especially my romantic relationships. So in my mind, I let myself get talked into something that felt actually later on, I was like, way, this is way out of my comfort zone still. Like
Uh-huh.
that was a year and a half ago now that we bought this place, but I'm still like,
Uh-huh.
and I mean, to be fair, this place has risen incredibly in like, I mean, like it has really appreciated in value over the last year and a half already. We could turn it around after a year and a half and sell it for actually a really good profit.
Yeah.
That's true. But I'm like, I still like, but I also am like, I don't understand like the markets. I'm like, next year it could then plummet. I don't understand these things. So I'm like,
Okay. So okay. So was that a point of like was that something you guys were talking about for a while and like it was a point of contention?
no, that was the crazy thing. It was like we started looking a few months ago, and because you can only get a loan here in Denmark if you have like a solid job. Like we weren't, and I'm an independent, I like whatever. So I wasn't going to get it. It was going to be off of his thing. And suddenly he's like, well, I'm leaving that job. So we've got like 2 months. And I'm like, 2 months to like find a place in this market, to find a place to.
Uh-huh.
I wasn't even a fuck yes to this apartment. I was like, we even had looked at it and kind of dismissed it and we went back to it. Unlike my last apartment, which I saw and I had that fuck yes in my body, right? When I saw my house out in the countryside, I had that fuck yes in my body where I was like, this is in alignment. It's like lower than the budget that I had set. It's less risk averse, it's more stable. Like there's like, there was those things. But this, I was like, I ended up kind of getting rushed into it because I needed to move out of my other place. He needed to move out of this place. He was losing his job. There was the push of time. And so I also let myself kind of get pushed into that. So
Okay. I want to know about how it is today, but I want to also reflect just the information you've already given.
please.
Because again, look, it's the fourth house, right? It's about the apartment. And there is this very valuable apartment, Sun, Venus in the fourth house. But you feel like very reserved and conservative, and you don't want to go and spend that much money on the freaking apartment. Yeah, so there's again Sun, Venus, Saturn. And then that you also don't understand, you feel like you're not very intellectually strong, and your partner is the one to kind of like make and move that decision. So there again, I feel Sun, Venus, Saturn, right? The Sun, Venus, that your partner is so important to you. Right. And so, of course, you go with what he's saying, even if you don't feel too comfortable. That makes me think about the Sun, Venus, Saturn in the fourth. And if you notice the transits, like I'm going to go back a year and a half. Okay.
Okay.
So you bought it like at the end of 24 or what?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Like December?
No, it would have been earlier. It would have, we moved in December, but I think we bought it like September of 24.
Okay.
Something.
So look at what's happening in September of 24. Right? Transiting Jupiter in your fourth house in September is exactly conjunct your Sun, Venus. Right? And so exactly at this time, you acquire this property of massive value. Right? And then you guys move into it shortly thereafter. Does that make sense to you?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay. And then because you can see like Jupiter stayed in your fourth house, that would have been up until May of 25. Right. So that makes me think of, well, I don't know, because there was a lot going on at that time, probably decorating the apartment, moving between the houses, enjoying so much that you have these new places. I don't know, because that's the Jupiter energy, right? But what's also there is that Saturn throughout 2025, for the entire 25, was squaring your Sun and Venus in the fourth. Right.
And
So
what?
that makes me think of, okay, so you have this amazing property, but you don't feel too fuck yes about it. You actually get pushed into it. Right. So Saturn is that feeling of contraction, that feeling of tightness, like something is being put on you and you cannot avoid it. You can't say no. Right. So that hardship. That makes me think about the first house, right? That you're the one to kind of make yourself small and to swallow. Right. And you do that for the benefit of the relationship. So there's Saturn squaring your Venus in the fourth house.
Yeah.
Right. Because what the situation was specifically is that your partner was like, yes, let's get this apartment. Right. Fourth house Venus. And you were like, ooh. Okay. Does that all make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Very good.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about all that now? Because you said that was a point of conservatism for you, but you've noticed that the value has risen. So where does that live in your mind today?
I am less contracted about it, but for instance, like, he wants to make some improvements to the house, and I still notice like, like a little bit of being like, and luckily he's gone from wanting to do like one really expensive improvement. He's actually gotten a lot more conservative on the improvement, and I have really relaxed, and that feels really good. So it's softened. I still don't like love this place. It's fine. And we've actually rented it out on Airbnb. So we've offset some of the, because like the monthly is pretty hot, so much higher than my last place. So a little bit of getting that off, but like now we're able to offset some of that. So it has been a good investment. So I've softened a lot. And I think also to have like slowly over the last year to have admitted my part in that, about like, I wasn't really a fuck yes. I did allow myself to get talked into it. I wasn't in the best place to make that agreement at that time, that I was like, I was in mourning about something else, and I wasn't, emotionally in a great place to have made such a big decision. So, and I think he's heard me in that, and I felt like, so that has moved on in that way as well. And I've also gotten to the point where I've seen how it serves me, that I'm not particularly attached to this place, and that's okay. I've got a beautiful attachment. I've got this place that I love that I go to half the week, and it's okay, you know? So it's like
Mhm.
peace with it, and all of those other things have come into more of a balance.
Interesting. Okay, so I mean, okay, first of all, notice that you rent out the Airbnb and that offsets some of the price, right? So you get money from your house as well. Like that is one of your sources of income. So again, Sun, Venus in the fourth house,
Okay.
right? It's the Airbnb, there's the investment, there's the money coming from your bonus father,
Yeah.
right? And there's your partner who appears to be, well, also financially intelligent. Right. So there I feel the Sun, Venus, and the fourth very strong. Okay. And then the Saturn as well, that you have this very valuable property, but for you, it's like, well, you don't love it. Right. You're kind of fixed there without really intending to be. You just made that decision for the sake of your partner and for the ease of everything, right? To make things easygoing. Right, so there I feel the Sun, Venus, Saturn, right? So that it's not that there's just the money and woohoo, but then there's like, okay, well, that's not my favorite place, and I rather go to my other cottage, and right. So there I feel the Gemini also moving between the two places frequently, again and again and again.
Yeah.
Yeah, does that all make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And the other part is like, again, during that period where you said you were not in a good place to purchase the home to make that decision because you were grieving. Right, so there is Saturn squaring your Sun and Venus again, because who's really important for you in life? It's your father and your bonus father. And at this time, you come to know that there's no more accessing them on this physical plane, right? There's Saturn and Pisces. Those people are unreachable. They've gone to the afterlife, right? You can't talk to them. And then there's this decision about the household being made. So do you see how that works together all?
Mhm.
Okay. There's one other thing I want to check. It's about 2019. That's when your life really changed, right? 2018,
Correct.
2019.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Um, 2018, 2019. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Okay, so this is your secondary progressions. And well, there's a lot going on. But what I would especially point out to you is that your progressed Jupiter was making an exact opposition to your progressed Venus and also to your natal Venus. And that would have been applying for the next 3 or 4 years. So that makes me think about how over that period, you kind of start to get familiar with a very different lifestyle. Okay, I just wanted to check the progressions because I felt like they were important in 2019.
Okay.
You told me that there has been, so your partner had this idea about making some repairs, okay, or making improvements to the house. And you said the improvements got less aggressive, like things are more manageable even for you now. So the question for me is, first of all, what did he want to do and when?
Yeah.
And what has he reduced to now?
Yeah. So, I mean, he almost wanted to do things pretty immediate last year. So we have like we have a top floor apartment. And one of the reasons he came back to it, even though like the apartment itself is fine. I mean, it's a perfectly nice apartment. Um, so I don't mean to like disparage it. It just doesn't like, I moved from this like really old, beautiful view, like, funky, cool, like that had a lot of soul. And this is like one of these, you've seen Sohan. It's like it's a concrete box. It's just not something that I've ever lived in before, so it doesn't have a lot of soul, so that's what I'm contrasted with. And it has its own rooftop. And so we actually, as we were talking about it, to put actually a tiny house on the roof and make that into something like not only an extra room, so we're actually increasing the square footage of the place in a way and making this beautiful oasis up on the roof. Well, the first the first ideas he had, that that little house was very extravagant. And was quite, yeah, it was quite extravagant. And I already had just felt what we had just already purchased. I was like, it just felt like one thing on the other. And I would almost disassociate when you would talk about it. You know, I'd just be like, hadn't even really come to the realization yet that I'd kind of disassociated around even buying this apartment, you know? So it was like yet another thing that just caught me. And so I just noticed constantly dragging my feet. And when he found out that he had actually missed the Generalversammlung, like the big you know, it's a big association. So the association meeting, the homeowners association, everyone has to agree on that. It's a spring meeting, and they have, like, the other people get to say yay or nay for a project. When he missed that deadline last year, I felt this. He was so upset, and I missed this huge. I had such a huge wave of relief. I was like, "Oh my God, it's bought me some time," you know. And and then when he finally did a little bit more research into it, for instance, finding out that we have very little electricity up there. So any of these, all these, like, basically we have enough to plug in a lamp and something else. So he has to actually go quite very much down in, and also compared to what the other people have, that it's going to block somebody's views, so it needs to be much smaller. It means, so it's gotten much more reduced, and I notice every time it's gotten reduced and like small, I'm like, oh, like I feel like a real breath. And so now he has just submitted the new plan, and he was just telling me last night, this is fascinating. He was just telling me last night that he was looking at the deadline and he had read it as April 11th. So on the 10th, he was about to submit it. And when he looked at it, it was actually, it had been for the 9th, the day before. So last night he was like, oh my God, I think I missed the deadline again. And they're now in conversation about whether or not they'll allow it to go through. But I was like, just like trying to talk to him last night, and I was like, you know, if it's not meant to be this year, then like it'll happen next year, and like maybe the plans will like we'll get even more firm on the plans, because he's like rushing to get this plan in. And for me, I take like, I've been working on this redesign and redevelopment of my summer house for years. I bought it in 2020, you know, and I moved super slow about like wanting to live in the house and see what it, you know, I went from kind of extravagant designs to something now that I feel like moving forward. I move very slowly in some of these big decisions. And so I feel like he's been kind of like rushing the design over the last to make this deadline. And that's where we're very, very different. So that's all what's happening with that. So we don't even know yet. We'll find out, I guess, in a few days if they are allowing the design to go through. That's before the design even gets approved. That's a different thing. But right now they're figuring out if they'll allow even them to look at the plans, because he missed the deadline for the. Does that make sense? Yes.
Yeah, totally. You know, it's again Sun, Venus, Saturn, because what I hear from you is there's this idea to really improve the value of your house and do something epic and, you know, make more money and have the right. So that's the Sun, Venus in the fourth. It's kind of like all the situations that are around the apartment and the summer house, right? Because there's a lot of your attention is there, like what's happening with them.
Yeah.
And there's Saturn. And so for me, that Saturn part is like you're always nervous. Like there's that person in your house who wants to spend more money, who wants to do something more extravagant, who wants to do this hard work. Right. And so you're always feeling kind of, and even to your point, like about how you do things with your summer house, you said you're very cautious. It takes you a long time to just figure out exactly how you want to do the redesign. Right. So you're more intentional. You like to plan. There's Saturn, Sun, Venus, right? So it's very important what's happening for you in the actual buildings where you live. But for you, it's like a point of like friction and like, okay, let's slow down, right? More caution.
And it
Does that
reminds me of my dad, in the way that like I now have had multiple experiences where I'm with men who have cost me a lot of money. Like, and I didn't have a lot of money. Like I always like from the time I was 15, I had a job. By the time I was like 18, I would have three jobs. Like, I was always trying to like make ends meet. And then a lot of times I would date a guy who was like, would take risks and do things and it would end up costing me a lot. I got talked into, supporting some men in their ventures and like losing the money. And so now I think when I'm with a man and like they're a little bit like what I judge as reckless with money or just taking a lot of risks, it does contract me back to like thinking about my dad, my birth father, right? And so a part of
Mhm.
me then leans more towards my bonus father, which is like, you know, really
Mm.
being very slow, being very cautious, and like, um, and being conservative. Yeah.
Interesting. Even that you have these two different men as role models that you reference, right? The stellium in the fourth house, Gemini.
Yeah.
Right, and Sun Saturn are both about the father. And together with Venus, it's about the money. Um,
And I haven't even told you about my mother.
right, we didn't even get actually I would like to hear about that next. There was just something else I wanted to point out. Oh yeah. It's about having partners that drain you financially.
Yeah.
Right? So that makes me think about Pluto that is squaring your Venus and Sun in the seventh. And that you keep supporting them, they come in and then they drain your fine. That's you're like opening up a new storyline that
Yeah.
that just peeked out for me in the Pluto. Yeah, but again, that you worked like just to make ends meet and you had three jobs, right? That anxiety to be sure you have a roof over your head and everything's fine. There's again Sun, Venus, Saturn, right? Not everyone has that anxious nature when it comes to money and working and making sure. Does that all make sense?
Yep.
Okay, very good. So, how about your mom?
Yeah. So my mom, so if you want to, I mean, I am a Gemini in so many different ways. I have so many polarities. So my father's from Guatemala and my mother's from Denmark. And two more different people you could not know. so there's so I have, pieces of my father and pieces of my mother. So there's a lot happening inside where I have a lot of polarization inside of me. And my mother, she was born, at the end of World War II. So she was raised also like very, very conservatively in a very conservative home. They didn't have a lot of money. They were very tight with money. It was, nothing was ever bought on credit. Everything, like when I was young, and my mother would never let my father buy anything on credit. So everything needed to be paid for in full. So she was like the stabilization in our house, in our childhood household. So she was very contracted and very, held on very much about money. She didn't understand money, so I've also gotten a little bit of that from her. She just knew to like be kind of a little bit anxious around it and a little tight. And then she ended up marrying, divorcing my father and then marrying my bonus father, who suddenly was very wealthy, wanted to spend a lot of money on her, uh, which she consistently rejected. My mother doesn't like, she is not a fancy person, much to my bonus father's chagrin. She still wanted to just buy used clothing and she didn't want any fancy handbags. She didn't want anything, she still buys the cheapest toilet paper at the grocery store. She's very, frugal and also just like simple. Like she's just like a simple person. She's just not fancy at all. So as I was becoming a teenager, occasionally she would like, and we had also kind of a contentious relationship when I was younger. So she would occasionally give me like at Christmas, she would give me like $1,000 or $500, something that seemed huge to me at the time. And then she would really get very judgmental about the way that I would spend it. So it actually got to a point where she
Mm.
don't give me money anymore because like I hate what happens between us. Even though I was broke, I hated that whole thing. So
Mm.
people around how I was with money. So I also got very shamed for how I was with money. My mom would always be like, "You're so bad with money. You're so much like your dad, blah, blah, blah." So I just gained a lot of like contraction and nervousness around how I am with like this idea that I'm bad with money. So like I think I've always just had this like real anxiety, and also just the fact that like I don't really understand money. I don't understand the arbitrary nature of it. I don't understand how, you know, this piece of art behind me that somebody could like, I could put this up for sale on Facebook Marketplace and I could either ask $10 for it, I could ask $100 for it, I could ask $1,000 for it. It's arbitrary. There's no like what is value, like what do we it all of that is like, so I'm very much like an esoteric spiritual person, so I don't really understand how money works. And I have like also kind of a little bit of like a begrudging respect for it, but I also don't want to get like too close to it. Like it's like that, and I know a lot of that comes from some type of programming from my parents, including my mother and her thing about it. I will loop back to you and say that my mother and I have done a lot of work. We're really good now. She's also owned about her relationship with money, and we've had some healing on that. And there's actually been a weird point of pride that my mother says out of all the 6 kids, I'm the only one who still has all their money. Like they all spent it pretty quickly within the first few years of getting it. And my mother
Mhm.
getting that, actually that approval from my mother does mean something to me, that there is some type of like um validation or something, like there is a point of pride from those earlier days for her to be like, for her to admit, go like, wow, I'm actually really impressed by the way that you've held on to that money. There's something there. So
Interesting.
I'll pause there.
Even that again, Sun, Venus, Saturn, right? Because the thing with your mom around money being a lifelong thing that she's judging you. And there I started to also feel that your moon is in very close contact with Saturn. But I didn't get the full picture of the moon, so I'm going to remove her again.
Okay.
And yeah, that she was also contracted and that she's still like a conservative person. She's not fancy. So I see that actually in your family, there was a lot of situations around money, at least because we're talking about that, right? If we talked about other things, I guess there'll be a lot of that too.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and also that you're the one who ended up keeping all of your money, right? You're not frivolous. So there's the Sun, Venus, Saturn again, because you're the
Yeah,
one.
and not to like begrudge my all of my other sibs have kids and they all
Uh-huh.
live in the United States and they all have I think the very American pressures of getting a big house,
Mm,
2 cars and whatever. Whilst I bought a very small apartment, and for many years before I bought the like I didn't need a car, and I bought a summer house that was, I could have bought a much more extravagant summer house, but I bought something that was quite small. And like I love to live like with because I energetically don't want to be wasteful and extravagant. I do want to like, I don't have the same like capitalist pressures that so I want to hold that a little bit, that they all have they all have multiple kids and I have to pay for education and like all this stuff that I don't need to do. So like I want to just like hold that a little bit um
mm-hmm,
in some perspective. Yeah.
mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Oh, we're kind of out of time, but I really
Yeah.
wanted to also understand, like, what are, okay, can you, yeah, my boyfriend's gonna come home as well. I just wanted to know actually very basically, like, what are some of the things that you like to spend on?
Yeah, let's see. Food is the number one. Number one is food. Second is travel. Like those are my top two expenditures for sure. Um, it is also like beautifying the home. Like I have tried to make this place into something that I love. And so it's always like, and I love to like thrift and find like, you know, cool antiques. And I love to, I'm trying to fill this house with age and soul and spirit to make it up. If you can probably tell how I feel in my home is of utmost like benefit to my nervous system. Like
Mhm.
I need to feel my home is like this cozy, delicious nest, not just for me, but like I invite clients into it. I want them to instantly be like, oh, so like having that is super important to me. So I do often like if I see some beautiful object that is filled with soul and spirit, like I'll bring it home. Like it's, I have lots of little findings from all over but I won't blow like a stupid amount of money on something. But so I don't buy too many extravagant things, but I buy things often enough that they would probably equal to one extravagant thing, like to be,
Uh-huh.
you know, um,
Okay. Okay, so do you notice again there's the Sun Venus in the
mhm.
fourth house because you love to beautify your home and you buy little things here and there for it. But what's interesting in your case is that you buy antiques and stuff that is old that can fill the house with age. Even when you talk about the summer house, you keep emphasizing that it's old
Yeah,
and that you like that it's old and not modern.
yeah,
Okay, I guess that's where the soul comes from for you, from the
yeah,
history, from the story, right, of
yeah,
those older builds.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah. And the
right, that are not
history of
so.
anything that I buy, it's like everything is like handmade. If it has a crack in it, even better. Like, it's kind of like,
Oh, that okay. Um, there's one other part that I want to point out about that.
yeah.
It's the Mercury Jupiter opposition.
Mm,
You have a filled fourth house, and then you have two planets in Cancer, right? So for me, that's immediately pretty interesting because that shows us the family stuff is very important. Never mind. In this case, Mercury in Cancer is like looking for stuff for the home, right? And the opposition with Jupiter in Capricorn is like you look for antiques, for fancy items, for nice decor, for special pieces, things that are handmade, right? So kind of fancy, but also vintage. So there's the Jupiter in Capricorn.
yeah.
Whereas Mercury is like making purchases and like window shopping, right? And so the Cancer part is that all of that stuff is for the home. And when it's stuff that it's handmade, it makes me think about the fifth house also. It's artistry that
Yeah.
somebody's like put out together,
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, that you love to make your home beautiful and also that you have your clients there. Because remember, in the first place, when we talked about your work,
Yeah.
that you're doing the authentic relating coaching.
Yeah.
And then we talked about your sun, Venus, and Gemini, right? Helping
Yeah.
people to connect and to talk nicely with each other. But see, it's in the fourth house. So you bring clients into your home even. And you
Yeah.
like to sun, Venus, beautify the home for them so that when they come in, it's like a cozy net. So do you see that sun, Venus again and again and again and again? How many? And by the way, we didn't talk about your sister. But of
No.
course, because it's Venus in the fourth house, the
No.
sister, right? So there might have been some dealings between you as well, like money flowing between you somehow.
Mm.
Um, yeah, it's always there's so much information to go through as soon as we start
Yeah.
a journey, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna pause here. So,
Oh,
what did you think about that?
this has been so cool. Like I really love it. I really appreciate this. I love that you're doing this and you're going to create a course out of this. This is going to be
Right.
like I love that. So I'm so excited that I like was able to be one of your people. I think this has been very like illuminating and and yeah, anytime of course that I get to I'm so much often in service to others. So it's always this like
Mm,
to actually get things reflected back to me. And I am a person who I'm I I'm very much like a what's it called? It's not an ambivert, but like I am both, I'm both introverted and extroverted. Like I need both, but the way that I really am an extrovert is the way that I understand myself needs to be in connection with another person. So
Okay.
like
Hmm.
I need to process outwardly. I can't just sit here in my own head, and I need it to be reflected back and processed, and that's been really beautiful. So I'm really appreciative.
You're very welcome. And
Yeah.
I'm just changing location because my
Yeah.
boyfriend got home.
Where in Germany are you?
In the south, in
Okay.
Bayern, in
Okay.
Bavaria,
Yeah. Oh, nice.
near Nuremberg. Um,
Beautiful.
so yeah, I wanted to point out to you again, like needing to, like enjoying to process with someone else, to externalize your thoughts, right? Because the fourth house again is about your very deep emotions, who you are on the inside, right? So again, you have Gemini, Sun, Venus there, and you love to process with someone else listening. So you could see it that way as well. Okay, I'm gonna end the recording. We're just
Okay.
gonna talk for a couple minutes, if that's fine for
Super.
you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyone that's joined us, hope that was instructional. Well, it certainly was for me. We will see you in the next interview. Okay.